hidden in plain sight, overlooked in pockets, piggy banks, and dusty drawers for decades. These Jefferson nickels may look old, dirty, and completely ordinary. But appearances can be deceiving. Some of these coins carry rare mint marks, secret die errors, or unusual dates that can make them worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars to the right collector. Tonight, we're diving deep into the top 3 dirty, overlooked Jefferson nickels that could be sitting right under your nose. You'll see coins that were almost thrown away, coins that collectors would kill to find, and coins whose true value only reveals itself when examined closely. By the end of this video, you'll never look at loose change the same way again. Dirt becomes treasure, scratches become history, and forgotten nickels become gold. Join us on this thrilling journey through the hidden world of Jefferson nickels, where one coin can change everything, and every discovery is a story waiting to be told. Are you ready to uncover the secrets hiding in your pocket change? This is the hunt every collector dreams of, and it starts right now. The story of the 1983 Jefferson nickel begins much earlier than the year stamped on the coin, because its history is rooted in the evolution of American coinage and the long legacy of the Jefferson nickel series, introduced in 1938 when the United States Mint sought a new design to replace the Buffalo nickel, which had become difficult to strike clearly over its years in circulation. The new design featured the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse created by artist Felix Schlag, whose work was selected through a national competition. Schlag's design captured a classical left-facing profile of Jefferson, accompanied by the word liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," while the reverse featured a detailed depiction of Monticello Jefferson's historic home in Virginia, along with the denomination and the national motto, E Pluribus Unum. By the time we arrive at 1983, the Jefferson nickel had already been a familiar sight in the pockets of Americans for nearly half a century. And the year itself stood at an interesting moment in U.S. minting history. The early 1980s had seen economic shifts, rising metal costs, and an overall increase in demand for circulating coinage. This context shaped the production of coins in 1983, a year in which no official mint sets were released by the United States Mint due to budget cuts and changes in their annual product strategy. The absence of official mint sets meant that many high-quality, uncirculated 1983 coins, including nickels, were not preserved in large numbers, making well-struck examples particularly desirable to collectors decades later. Production in 1983 took place at 2 primary facilities, Philadelphia and Denver, and these mints were responsible for creating the circulation strike nickels that would eventually travel across the country in commerce. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mint mark, as was tradition until the mid-1980s, while the Denver Mint marked its coins. With the familiar D collectors today, often note that due to the lack of mint sets, the 1983 Jefferson nickel is somewhat challenging to find in pristine condition. The coins were minted for everyday use, meaning that most entered circulation immediately and experienced wear, making high-grade examples both interesting and historically significant. When examining the characteristics of the 1983 nickel, it continues the classic Jefferson design that had been used for decades. The obverse still displayed the well-known portrait with Jefferson's profile carefully sculpted by Schlag, while the inscriptions remained unchanged. The reverse featured Monticello with its architectural details, including the steps, the columns, and the dome, which were sometimes difficult to strike sharply, depending on the coin's die state or level of wear. Many collectors look specifically for strong strikes on the steps of Monticello, which is known as the full steps designation, and any 1983 nickel with crisp and complete steps becomes a standout piece because full steps coins in this year are harder to locate due to the circulation-focused production quality. The year 1983 also reflects broader economic and cultural themes in the United States, inflationary pressures, changes in consumer habits. and increasing reliance on coin-operated technologies such as vending machines all maintained the nation's need for reliable coinage systems that depended on accurate coin. Weights and sizes made the nickel's consistent characteristics essential, leading the U.S. Mint to uphold its alloy composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, producing a durable piece capable of lasting decades in circulation. Some 1983 nickels still appear in pocket change today, a testament to their durability and widespread production. Collectors examining 1983. Jefferson nickels often pay attention to die varieties and minor errors, which add additional layers of interest to the year. Some nickels from 1983 show die cracks filled, dies over-polished, dies and off-center strikes. These variations occur naturally during large production runs, and because 1983 saw heavy output for circulation, many of these small minting quirks managed to slip into everyday commerce. Without official mint sets, collectors rely heavily on rolls bags and uncirculated coin hoards to discover these varieties, each offering a glimpse into the minting process of the early 1980s. Another important aspect of the 1983 nickel story is the transitional period in coin collecting culture that took place during the decade. The 1980s saw a growing interest in modern coinage, fueled by hobby publications, coin shows, and the expanding role of third-party grading services. These companies brought new standards and consistency to the evaluation of coins, and this movement helped elevate the importance of coins like the 1983 nickel in high grade. The idea that a common coin from a regular circulation year could hold premium value if preserved exceptionally well became more widely accepted and encouraged many collectors to take a closer look at coins that had previously been overlooked. The Jefferson nickel in 1983 also reflects the long-standing symbolism of Thomas Jefferson himself as one of America's founding fathers, representing ideals of democracy, scientific curiosity, and architectural brilliance. His presence on the nickel had remained unchanged for decades, and during this period his legacy continued to be reinforced in schools, museums, and national narratives. This cultural continuity gave the Jefferson nickel an added layer of patriotic familiarity, making it one of the most recognized coins in circulation throughout the United States. As the decade progressed, the coins struck in 1983 continued to circulate widely, and their role in everyday commerce helped countless Americans make purchases, ride buses, operate payphones, and use vending machines. The nickel remained an essential denomination, and the 1983 edition contributed to that legacy, unnoticed by the general public, but later appreciated by numismatists seeking to preserve pieces of monetary history. Today, a detailed examination of the 1983 Jefferson nickel reveals much more than a small metal disc. It reflects economic conditions, minting challenges, collector interests, national identity, and the evolving designs of U.S. coinage all tied together in a single year of production. For a documentary, you could expand this narrative by continuing into deeper subtopics, such as the technological processes used at the mint during the early 1980s, comparisons between 1983 nickels and those from surrounding years, the evolution of the Jefferson nickel series leading into the 2004 and 2005 Westward Journey designs, and the eventual 2006 redesign featuring the forward-facing portrait. You can also explore how the absence of 1983 mint sets influenced the collector market, the role of coin grading companies in assigning value, and stories of rare full-step examples discovered by collectors. All these elements together transformed the history of the 1983 Jefferson nickel into a rich and engaging long-form documentary narrative. The Jefferson nickel of 1984 stands as one of the important yearly issues in the long-running series that began in 1938 when the United States Mint replaced the Buffalo nickel with a new design honoring Thomas Jefferson and displaying his iconic home Monticello. By the time 1984 arrived, the series had already existed for almost half a century and had seen changes in minting technology, metal shortages, wartime compositions, and gradual improvements in dyes and planche preparation. The 1984 nickel belongs to the late modern era of the series, a period when the mint was focusing strongly on mass production, high-speed press efficiency, and improved quality control, as America entered a decade of economic change, technological advancement, and growing demand for circulating coinage. In 1984, the Mint produced Jefferson nickels at both Philadelphia and Denver, and each facility carried its own role in supplying the nation with coinage, used in daily transactions. Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark in this era because the P mint mark would not appear on nickels until 1980, and Denver coins used the D mint mark as usual. The nation's circulation needs during the early to mid-1980s were high due to population growth, nationwide commerce expansion, and the widespread use of coins in vending machines, transportation systems, and everyday retail purchases. The Mint responded by striking hundreds of millions of coins, creating the 1984 issue as one of the plentiful modern nickels, but still retaining collector interest because each year's strikes can differ subtly in die quality, luster strike sharpness, and the presence of die varieties. The design of the 1984 Jefferson nickel continued the long-running portraits created by sculptor Felix Schlag. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson with the inscriptions Liberty and the date placed carefully by the designer. Over the decades, dies were modified slightly for clarity and relief, and by the 1980s, the Mint had adopted a set of hubs that created a smoother and more modern appearance compared to earlier years. On the reverse volks, Monticello remained the central architectural element, with the inscriptions Monticello 5 cents, United States of America, and E pluribus unum. While the design had remained stable for decades, the details on each year's coins could vary because die wear, metal flow, and press pressure affected whether the steps at the base of Monticello struck fully. Collectors often search for full steps examples, and in 1984, these are particularly prized because strong, fully detailed strikes were less common than in some earlier years. The broader historical background of 1984 adds deeper meaning to the coin. The United States was in the middle of the Reagan era, an economic and political period characterized by shifting trade relationships, rapid technology growth, and changes in consumer habits. The Mint was upgrading processes using more modern presses and refining planche preparation to ensure smoother surfaces and consistent weight. The copper-nickel alloy used since 1946 remained unchanged, with a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its familiar silver-gray appearance and durability. As America moved toward a more automated economy, the demands on coin production became more rigorous, and the 1984 issue reflects a period when the Mint focused on balancing speed and precision. Errors and varieties linked to the 1984 Jefferson nickel also attract interest from collectors. Modern minting sometimes produced off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes over polished dies, and occasional planche flaws. The most important variety for the 1980s nickels arises from differences in the sharpness of Monticello's steps. Full steps. Examples from 1984 require that each stair line be clean, uninterrupted, and sharply defined, a rare occurrence due to the heavy workload on the dies and the high volume of coins produced. These full steps coins are valuable because they represent the best strike quality of the year, and many collectors build sets aiming for only the highest grade coins. In circulation, the 1984 Jefferson nickel served ordinary American life. It passed through convenience stores, supermarkets, bus stations, payphones, and vending machines. Coins from this year witnessed everyday economic activity, and because nickel coins are durable, many 1984 nickels continued circulating for decades. Even today, they appear in pocket change, worn down from years of use, but still carrying the iconic portrait of Jefferson. Coin collectors often reference 1984 nickels as examples of mid-1980s mint output, revealing how production quality shifted subtly from year to year, even though casual users saw them simply as everyday currency. Over the course of its life, the 1984 nickel became part of the larger narrative of the Jefferson series, which remained unchanged until the Westward Journey redesigns of 2004 and 2005, and finally the modern obverse redesign in 2006. That makes the 1984 issue a snapshot of the classic Schlag design before the mint made major updates. It represents stability, tradition, and continuity in American coinage. For collectors who enjoy studying minting history, die changes, and strike quality, the 1984 Jefferson nickel offers a rich opportunity to explore the late 20th century mint environment, as well as the long-running evolution of one of America's most familiar coins. The story of the 1984 Jefferson nickel also connects to the internal structure of the United States Mint during the early 1980s, when the nation was experiencing evolving economic pressures. The mint was responsible for maintaining stability in the coin supply, and by 1984, the demand for usable circulating coinage had reached a high point due to expanding commercial activity and increasing dependence on small denomination coins. Although paper money handled larger transactions, the nickel, along with the penny and quarter, became essential for automated systems and everyday retail purchases. The Mint's operations in Philadelphia and Denver had to coordinate production schedules, balance metal inventories, and maintain high output while reducing waste because copper and nickel costs fluctuated due to global market conditions. Each 1984 Jefferson nickel began as a blank slug of copper-nickel alloy punched from a rolled sheet. These blanks underwent annealing cleaning and upset milling to form a raised rim before entering the coining presses. During 1984, the Mint used high-speed Schuler presses capable of producing tens of thousands of coins per hour, but this speed came with challenges. Dies wore rapidly, and press operators constantly monitored the machines to identify die fatigue or weakening details in the design. As a result, some 1984 nickels show sharp, bold features, while others appear soft or dull depending on the condition of the die at the time of striking. This variety fascinates collectors because coins from the same year can appear vastly different in sharpness and luster. The social climate of 1984 enhances the significance of the coin as well. America was moving further into the digital age, but still relied heavily on physical currency for millions of daily interactions. Credit cards were gaining popularity, but were not yet common among average households, meaning coins like the 1984 nickel played a central role in commerce. Children used them for arcade games and school lunches, adults used them for parking meters, bus fares, and vending machines, and workers used them for toll booths and payphones. Every 1984 nickel became part of the lived experience of people across the country and circulated through countless hands before being saved by collectors or worn nearly flat through years of use. History of the Jefferson Nickel 1986 is a journey through American coinage during a period of economic transition, political shifts, and changes in the United States Mint. As the nation moved deeper into the 1980s, the Jefferson nickel continued its long run as one of the most familiar coins in circulation, first introduced in 1938. The design by Felix Schlag had already been used for nearly 5 decades by 1986, and this year serves as an important chapter in the evolution of the series. To understand the 1986 Jefferson nickel, it is important to recognize the historical context of the mid-1980s. The United States economy was recovering from inflation and recession earlier in the decade, and the Mint was working to maintain stable production levels for circulating coins. The nickel denomination had continued its consistent use of the copper-nickel alloy, consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a composition that had remained unchanged since World War II, after the special wartime alloy period ended in 1946. The 1986 Jefferson nickel was struck at two major mints, Philadelphia and Denver, with no proof nickels made that year at San Francisco, since the San Francisco Mint was focused primarily on proof coinage and commemoratives during the 1980s. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1986 nickels, and the Denver Mint also struck a massive quantity, ensuring that the coin would be widely available in circulation. The absence of a mint mark on Philadelphia coins and the D on Denver issues makes them easy to identify. For collectors, the coin continued to feature the classic Jefferson portrait on the obverse, a design that reflected the nation's founding principles and the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, known for his contributions to American democracy, his role in the drafting of the Declaration of Independence, and his focus on education, liberty, and governance. The reverse design, displaying Monticello Jefferson's Virginia home, symbolized stability and national heritage during a period of modernization in the United States. The 1986 nickel also reflects the mint's increasing improvements in strike quality compared to earlier decades, although some weaknesses in Stepp's detail on Monticello still appeared depending on die wear and striking pressure. Full Stepp's examples from 1986, especially those with 5 or 6 fully defined steps, remain popular among collectors in the modern numismatic market because they represent precision and strong die maintenance over time. As coin grading services grew in popularity during the 1980s and 1990s, collectors began paying closer attention to strike differences, mint luster, and die varieties on circulating coinage. The 1986 nickel benefited from this new wave of numismatic interest, and several minor die varieties, such as die cracks, die breaks, and small repunched mint marks found on Denver coins, created additional areas of study. Although not as dramatic as varieties seen in earlier dates, these features still add historical value to the year's production, looking beyond the technical aspects. The 1986 Jefferson nickel also stands as a reflection of American life during the decade, a time defined by technological optimism, cultural shifts, and a renewed sense of national pride. Coinage circulation was strong, consumer spending was rising, and the mint continued producing large quantities of coins to keep up with economic activity. Everyday Americans encountered the 1986 nickel in stores, vending machines, and banks, connecting this small coin to millions of daily transactions across the country. The nickel's durability made it a stable part of the currency system, and its long-running design allowed generations of Americans to feel familiar with its appearance. While other denominations experienced design updates or commemorative releases, the Jefferson nickel remained unchanged. Offering a sense of continuity, by the late 1980s, discussions about future design changes were gradually growing among collectors. But the classic Schlag portrait continued to dominate the series until updates arrived in the early 21st century for a 2-hour narration. The story expands even further by covering the manufacturing process used at the U.S. Mint during this period, including details about blank production, annealing, upsetting the role of high-speed coining presses, and quality control measures that ensured uniformity in the billions of coins struck annually. The narration can also explore how coins were bagged, boxed, and shipped across the nation, feeding into the Federal Reserve Network and supplying banks in every state. Another important topic is the place of the 1986 nickel within the wider Jefferson series. Collectors today value mint state examples with strong luster-clean surfaces and sharp steps, as well as any examples displaying unusual die characteristics. For beginners, the 1986 nickel serves as an accessible entry point into collecting, since it is affordable, yet offers opportunities to study strike-quality mint practices and die varieties. The coin holds a special place for those who grew up during the 1980s, connecting memories of childhood spending, school lunches, bus fares, and everyday life with the coins they handled. The long-standing design creates a powerful sense of nostalgia, which enhances the historical significance of the 1986 issue. The story of this coin also ties into the legacy of Felix Schlag, whose original 1938 design was selected during a public competition. His artistic vision endured for decades. And the 1986 issue stands as part of that remarkable continuity. The design originally included more detailed Monticello perspectives that were later modified and simplified for engraving practicality, and these features remained present on the 1986 strike, giving it historical artistic weight in addition to circulating coinage. The 1986 nickel plays a part in the wider numismatic culture of the era, with coin shows, price guides, and collector magazines, all highlighting the growing interest in modern coin collection, while earlier dates attracted more major attention. Modern circulating coins, such as the 1986 nickel, helped introduce new generations to the hobby, bridging the gap between everyday money and historical study. In exploring the 2-hour narration, the story continues by diving deeper into the function of the nickel within the U.S. economy, examining how the buying power of 5 cents changed over time, how inflation shaped consumer habits, and how coins like the 1986 nickel represented economic resilience as Americans adapted to rising technology, expanded media, and changing cultural landscapes. The nickel remained a reliable and recognizable symbol of American identity. Ultimately, the Jefferson nickel 1986 is more than just a coin. It is a snapshot of American history, a product of mid-'80s minting technology, a link to the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, and a continuation of an iconic design that endured for generations. This year stands at the intersection of numismatic interest, national culture, and everyday life, making the 1986 Jefferson nickel a meaningful part of the broader history of U.S. coinage.